Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to
Something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nickel Matara, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Aria.
Welcome to episode number 248 of Something Else. Feast your ear holes on this week's episode as we take a look at NWA Total Nonstop Action, episode number 73 from November 26, 2003. My name is Aria, and joining me this week is the man who will help me perpetuate the myth that TNA exists. He is the no contest to my some sort of disqualification. It's Trae. Trae, welcome back.
I'm so ashamed for participating in perpetuating this myth.
And especially because we're not even watching the days of the future where TNA gets good, relatively speaking. We're smack dab in the middle of the weekly pay-per-view era. I mean, I guess, are we still in the middle? I would still say we're still in the middle. We're closer to the end than the beginning, but we're still closer to the middle than the end.
Yeah, that's fair.
So did you see the picture that Christopher Daniels tweeted out today?
No.
So Daniels tweeted out a picture from the mid-10s ROH days with him, Kazarian, Samoa Joe, and AJ Styles. And Daniel said, as of today, the three best wrestlers in this picture hold championship gold in their respective federations after years of honing their skills around the world against the best competition anywhere. The fourth guy is proud to have shared the ring with them and see their success. Now, it was a tremendous thing to say, and I'll get to my opinion about this here in a second, but until I saw this tweet, I completely forgot that AJ Styles was tag team champions in WWE right now.
The only reason that I knew is that I saw fucking something like this week that mentioned it.
Like when I saw it and I remembered, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that he and Dragon Lee won the belts, but I just kind of assumed they lost them. You know? Because like they're not a team. Well, I mean they're a team, but I mean they're not to the best of my knowledge, they're not a regular team.
What is a regular team?
Well, like to the best, like unless I'm mistaken, because again, I am not following WWE like at all. Like, if you made me sit here and tell you who are in the War Games matches, I might be able to, and that would be a lot of and uhs along. But to the best of my knowledge, they weren't the team until they won the belts.
To the best of my knowledge, that is the case.
Oh, it's like, or if they were, like they had one or two matches, which, you know, it's very Vince McMahon-y. And again, I can't truly judge it because again, I'm not watching it, but you know, Power Trips is not really booking main roster like he did NXT back in the day.
Well,
but
for the kind of people who like that sort of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like.
Yep. By the way, I don't know if it's a work injury or not, but if it's a shoot injury, best wishes to Sheamus. Hope you're feeling better. And I guess he'll get away with never doing a job to John Cena on pay-per-view before he retires. So, yes.
Is that? I assume that's a real stat.
Apparently, yes. This was something that the speaking of things that barely exist, that the WrestleCrop message board figured out like a decade ago, and it became a running joke where we've turned Sheamus into the Chuck Norris of pro wrestling based on the fact that he never got beat by John Cena on pay-per-view. At first, it was never beat by John Cena on TV or pay-per-view, and then like a week after we posted the thread, Cena beat Sheamus on TV, which further proved our theory that somebody in the WWE writing staff is reading the WrestleCrap message board. But yeah, he's never beaten Sheamus on pay-per-view, which is kind of weird. Anyway, so I remember thinking this back in 2014 and 2015 when it happened, and I really still believe it to this day. AJ, Kazarian, and Joe and Daniels, them leaving TNA, even though they were more spaced out, that was the Radicals leaving WCW. This was ripping the heart out of TNA, and it was TNA's fault, that they lost all these guys.
Yeah.
And it's like they didn't have people to replace them with.
No, they didn't.
Yeah. And it sucks because you're like, bad influence, especially like, they were, I don't know, I have to really stop and think about what's happened since, but they may be the last great tag team act that TNA put together. And I mean put together, because I mean like the Good Brothers were already a team and all this stuff.
That was why I didn't respond immediately, because I was thinking about that. And yeah. Believe you are correct.
Yeah. And I'm sure somebody, our one listener sitting at home screaming, "What do you mean TNA put together?" I don't know.
You can't even think of
they put together OVE, and I'm like, no, they didn't. They were the Chris on indie shows in the mid 2000s. TNA had nothing to do with that.
They were the Irish Airborne.
Yeah, I just remember Brian Alvarez was never a fan of Dave and Jake Chris.
Yeah. I actually went
TNA put together ABC, who may not be like a greatest tag team of all time, but they were a pretty damn solid tag team.
Okay, did they put them together, or did they do Super Junior Tag League together first?
No, they were already together.
Okay, I believe you.
Anyway, what were you about to say before I rudely cut you off?
Oh, I actually went to the first Ring of Honor pay-per-view, like the first live Ring of Honor pay-per-view in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because, like, the deciding factor was when they announced Bad Influence.
Wasn't that the debut of Moose?
Maybe it was around that time.
I just remember thinking at the time that, and this is an unfair statement to Moose, because obviously he's not awful, he's pretty decent, but like Moose to me was like the jumping the shark moment for Ring of Honor, because this was the first time that they brought in somebody. He's a former pro football player. He's not a great indie pro wrestler that they signed to bring in and push to the moon. This was some guy that never wrestled, or if he did wrestle, like it wasn't really well known. And to me, it was like, this is very WWE. This is very TNA of them to do this.
I don't know. I didn't hate Moose.
I didn't hate Moose. I just thought that, like, just that like it was very, WWE to just bring in a former football player with no experience or little experience. But oh well. Enough about 2013. Let's talk about 2003, because it's Thanksgiving Eve, both in real life and in the asylum. And in case you didn't listen to yesterday's show, first of all, what the hell is wrong with you? But secondly, there's not going to be a Smoky Mountain show tomorrow because it's, Thanksgiving in America, and we'll be back next week with that. Anywho, before we dive into TNA 2003, we'd like to tell you what TNA news is out there, courtesy of Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. And the news is all about Hulk Hogan. And this was the week that TNA officials and the people backstage pretty much figured out that Hogan was working them. And they were confident that Hogan is not coming in. And the angle that they run on this week's show with Hogan was a way to either write him out or something that they could build heat off of later on if Hogan does come in. So, in case that whole angle seemed weird to you, Trae, that's why. Now, despite that, as a lot of us know, that Vinny Rue was given the boot from the company because they were bringing Hogan in, and Hogan and Russo were still at loggerheads with the lawsuit and everything. Despite that, it is said that Jeff Jarrett and Vince Russo are so far apart philosophically that Russo is, quote unquote, probably not returning to the writing team.
How long would it be?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. What was that?
How long would it be before he was back?
How long was he back into the writing team, or how long was he back in TNA?
How long?
Because
Either I don't know. Is
So-
he back before he's on the writing team?
yes, he's going to be back next year as a babyface, and he leaves at Victory Road, and because that's when he goes to. I think that's when he goes to I'm saying Catholic school, not Catholic school. Like, you know, I don't fucking know. He goes to become a
Seminary.
born again Christian seminary school. Um, he goes off to do that. I think that's when he leaves in November of next year. And then he comes back to be part of the writing team when Angle comes in. Because that's when they boot Scott D'Amore and everybody else. And Cornette tells the story that, Dutch called him up and said, "We've taken everyone off the writing team except me and Jeff, and we've added one person, Vince Russo." And
Which is an even bigger subtraction by addition.
yes. It's funny because, and at the end of the day, I think like it wouldn't have mattered because Dixie, Russo had Dixie manipulated all to hell. But you do wonder because, Cornette has said, because he just came off writing OVW for 6 years, he didn't want to write or book anything right now. You wonder if he hadn't been so adamant about that, had they may have offered him a spot on the writing team instead, and especially since he'd already started doing road agenting duties as well, he may have considered it, and if he did, they may not have brought in Russo. But that's one of those what ifs that, again, I think it still comes down to Dixie just loved her some Vince Russo. And yeah. All right. So after a 1-week break, the show once again begins with Scott Hudson standing outside with Jimmy Hart. And at least this week, he's not only outside with Jimmy Hart, he's outside with Jimmy Hart and a bunch of fans. And they're talking about the fans' revenge match. And Jimmy said he will go into the crowd during the. He said this weird. He said, I wrote this down and rewound to make sure he said what I thought he said. He said that during the match, he would go into the crowd to pick out 9 other lumberjacks. I wrote, hopefully he does it before the match begins. Dusty Rhodes walked in and reiterated this is fans' revenge before they went to the opening video package.
I'm glad he reminded us. I might have forgot otherwise.
Yes. I just think it's hilarious that, like, except for last week as noted, they keep starting these shows with Scott Hudson standing outside with Jimmy Hart.
Indeed.
Like,
I've seen variations of it twice now.
Yeah. It's like they have a script for TNA, and it's like it's already pre-filled with certain segments. Scott Hudson's outside with Jimmy Hart, Jeff Jarrett's in the ring cutting a promo, and random X Division match in a weird spot in the card that's going to get a wacky, if any, reaction. So after the intro, we go into the arena where Jeff Jarrett comes out with Don Callis and the Red Shirts, who are just Kevin Northcutt and Legend now, because Ryan Wilson had his arm broken by Raven last week. Jarrett started by telling off the announcers and then said this should be the greatest night of his career. Why, you ask? I still don't know because he never really said. He spent 3 or 4 minutes recapping the whole Hulk Hogan angle and then said Hogan's career is over, which is my best guess as to why this will be the greatest night of Jeff Jarrett's career. But I don't know why Hogan's career being over would make it the best night of Jeff Jarrett's career, other than the fact he just doesn't have to wrestle Hulk Hogan now. Which is funny because the whole thing started because he wanted to wrestle Hulk Hogan. Go ahead.
Why is Hogan's career over now? Did something happen?
Nope. He's just a wimp who won't come in and take on Jeff Jarrett, I guess. After Jarrett went to Japan to take TNA to Hogan.
Because Jeff Jarrett is so frightening.
Yes, of course. Jarrett demanded a 10-bell salute for Hogan's career, and they showed a picture of him standing in front of a green screen, which was just like a really weird picture. Now, of course, as we mentioned like a month ago, Hogan had done a whole bunch of local promos for TNA, which was like the only thing he did for the company. He came in and did a whole bunch of local promos that they did include. I remember seeing a TNA pay-per-view commercial in like 0304 that featured Hogan in it. And so like they did use them, but they were few and far between. And so Jarrett demands a 10-bell salute for Hogan's career. He stops the 10-bell salute after 4 bells and vows to whip the fans into a bloody pulp. He then basically named everybody who collects a check for TNA, all the people that you don't fucking know, like Tiny the Timekeeper and Sarah the ticket-taking lady. He informs all of them that they're either with him or against him, starting what Cyndi has told us is her least favorite angle in TNA history, which is not hard to see why.
Jeff, is this a famous angle the way you're being with Jeff Jarrett or against him?
Famous with an asterisk. It's very much we're just going to split the company into 2, more or less. You know, all the heels are going to be with Jeff Jarrett, and all the baby faces are not going to be with Jeff Jarrett. Which it's basically kind of like when the NWO did that thing where they said, everyone has 30 days to either be with the NWO or against the NWO, which was starting the watering down process of the NWO, because that's when, nothing against Bagwell, because he, Bagwell became a star, but you had that's when Scott Norton joined. That's when, Michael Wall Street joined the NWO. Like when you think about the NWO C team, that was when they all came in, and more or less, this is what they're doing here, splitting off the company with all these guys on one side against all the other guys.
Couldn't have been much of an NWO Japan without Scott Norton. How dare you sully the name of Scott Norton?
It's funny because I was not an internet fan at the time. I mean, there barely was an internet at the time. But it's so my only knowledge of what was going on in New Japan was what PWI is reporting. And PWI is being snarkier than I am about Scott Norton being the IWGP champion. And I'm like, so the guy who can't win a match on Thunder is the champion of New Japan. It's like, okay, then. Then I talk to you or I watch old tapes. It's like, I can't say there were better or worse options, but he was not the worst option for IWGP champion. Just, when you're not really following the product, it's a really weird choice.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so Eric Watts came out, and I don't know if it was the beanie, I don't know if it was the jeans and the t-shirt, maybe it was just a combination of all 3, but it's I thought Eric Watts looked a lot like Lance Hoyt in this segment. The future Lance Archer.
Eric Watts. Who would have thought Joel had the charisma in the family?
I don't know. Have you ever tried to put Eric on commentary?
Oh, hope not.
Um, so Eric Watts, who's the director of authority in TNA, he is dressed like a fucking slob.
Yes, he
And
is.
it's like not even a cool slob. Like this is just like this is the guy who's got power in your company kind of way. Watts said it was his decision to bring in Jimmy Hart, Rick Steiner, and Sting. Notably, he does not take credit for Duggan. Also, wasn't Jimmy the one that brought in Rick Steiner and Sting? Watts called Jarrett a jackass, except he didn't actually call Jarrett a jackass. He said Jack and then held the mic up for the crowd to say ass. Watts brought up Bash at the Beach. Apparently, he saw the beatings that Jimmy Hart kept getting and figured he wanted some. Um, Abyss allegedly attacked Eric Watts on the ramp. I say allegedly because the camera is showing Legend in the ring. Now, did you? I meant to tell you to watch for this. Did you see Legend, his reaction when Abyss was attacking Eric Watts?
I didn't notice why.
Okay. Because like he's standing next to Callis and Northcutt, so you may not really be focusing on him. But like he sells like he gets punched in the face, and then he sells a low blow. And then I'm like, damn, AJ is so small, he's hiding behind Don Callis and he can't even see him. And then I realized AJ's not in the fucking ring. And I went back and rewound it. I'm like, well, maybe Don, like, because Don was moving his arms wildly, maybe Don accidentally hit Legend in the groin. And that didn't happen either. So Legend's just randomly selling moves here for no particular reason. So who fucking knows? So everyone beats up Watts, including Abyss giving him a black hole slam. Jarrett screamed at him to bring on AJ Styles and Raven. So those two and AMW hit the ring for the save.
The only thing more generic than Eric Watts' promo was his entrance music.
It's TNA. I can't even blame him for that because, you know.
Okay.
You
Okay. Some of these early TNA themes slap, but I'm going to mention at least one later.
Oh, yeah. Like, if you want to see some bad TNA themes, like watch like the first couple episodes. Like, yeah, you get Jeff Jarrett's My World and all that shit, but you get the Abyss theme used by like 5 different people, but you end up with some really, really generic ass shit.
I've always had a guilty pleasure for that fucking horrible Born and Raised in the USA rip-off theme that AJ used. Born and Raised in the U. But it's like he only used it, I don't know, for maybe like a month at the beginning or so.
Oh no, he had it for like almost 6 months.
Oh, did he? That long? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I could be exaggerating a little, but I think it was close to the end of 2002 before he got to the I am, you are theme.
You are, I am.
I'll be honest, it took me a lot longer than it should have to know that those were the lyrics of the song. I thought like they were saying phenomenal over and over again.
Ow.
Oh, Lord. So backstage, Scott Hudson, already in his second appearance on the show, is with Simon Diamond, Johnny Swinger, Glen Gilbertti, and David Young about their 6-man tag match for the tag team titles. They are not pleased about this situation, and despite their match being with 3LK, Swinger cuts a promo on AMW. Swinger wants to know where their t-shirt and shoe deals are, and as the promo ended, Gilbertti was whispering in Young's ear. Now seemed like the best time to whisper a secret into David Young's ear.
He was whispering, "Hey, if it looks like we're about to lose, interfere in the match," because David Young couldn't have figured that out on his own.
I mean, to be fair, David Young has been fucking up left and right lately, so he may not have known to interfere when they're about to lose.
You know what? That's fair.
So we go to the ring for what I was afraid was going to be a really, really awful match, continuing Kid Cash's tradition of wrestling non-X Division people, because Kid Cash came out with a sign saying, "I fear no man, especially Don Harris." Because remember last week, Don Harris had stopped Kid Cash from ripping off Shark Boy's mask, and Kid Cash responded by slapping him and running away. And so I was worried that that was the match we were about to have. But instead, out came Low Key. And I was very pleasantly surprised. Now, it's important to ignore the fact that Low Key is being used as a setup guy for Don fucking Harris, which may explain why he's always in such a shitty mood. And Chris Daniels joined the announce desk for this one.
Kid Cash's sign was missing a comma, and it bothered me.
Oh yeah, I guess I added the comma when I wrote it down.
You did.
So he just put, I fear no man, especially Don Harris. No comma between man and especially.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm typing in without the comma, so a year from now when my editor goes through this and tries to add a comma, I'll be like, nope, there was no comma.
That's why you
There was not.
That's when you put a little sick period in brackets.
The first thing Daniels did on commentary was blow off the whole metamorphosis thing. That was the word of the day toilet paper a few months ago, was when Daniels was talking about metamorphosis, and he had his altar boys that he fired at least 3 times before they finally took the hint and stopped showing up, which makes them smarter than the Gathering, by the way. We'll get to that in a minute. So Daniel said he's not happy that he beat Low Key 2 weeks ago, and now he's doing commentary instead of wrestling. Kid Cash discovered why we should always have plants in the audience, because he went after an old lady, and the old lady did not back down. Was this fucking Stella Mae French or something?
Was her hair all fucked up?
What was that?
Was her hair all fucked up?
Well, I mean, it was 20 years later, so I'd hope Stella Mae's hair grew back in at some point.
No, she's pretty old.
That is true. So they were inventing moves during this match. Key did a double underhook suplex that he bridged up for a pin attempt, which was pretty neat. And then Kid Cash, maybe I just don't pay enough attention. I don't think I've ever seen this before or since. He used the combination full Nelson camel clutch, which I'm like, oh my God, that would be a tremendous finish. And here was a transition. They went to the top rope, and Cash gave Low Key a low blow that Key did not sell as well as Legend did for his mystery low blow. Keep in mind, they were standing on the top rope, so there's only so much selling that Low Key could do here. Cash went for a top rope powerbomb, and Key turned that into a top rope Hurricane Rana. Outside the ring, Low Key decided that now was the best time to stare down his former partner, and Cash knocked Key into him. Daniels angrily threw Key into the ring, where he was pinned by Cash, who had a handful of tights. Low Key was incredibly upset for somebody who was being rolled into the ring. After the match, Daniels and Low Key had a face-to-face. Don Harris came out to confront Kid Cash, so Kid Cash slapped him again and then ran away. This was a really good opener. Turns out it ended up being the best match on the show this week. Also, can we just have Chris Daniels on commentary all the time from now on? 7.0 out of 10, I gave it.
3 stars. Nice little match. The top rope powerbomb into the Frankensteiner was pretty sweet.
Indeed.
Low Key looked very much like a dipshit.
That's Low Key for you. Now, did you not mark out for the full Nelson camel clutch as much as I did?
I've seen somebody do that before. I can't think of who.
Well, Trae is our pro wrestling historian, ladies and gentlemen. So backstage, Scott Hudson, for the 3rd time on this show already, is now with Don Callis, Abyss, and the Red Shirts in their 2nd appearance on the show so far. Callis was holding an AJ Styles poster and randomly started talking about Shark Boy, who apparently is going to wrestle Abyss. Kevin Northcutt was randomly allowed to speak, and he said that he'll make Raven look like 40 miles of bad highway. Legend vowed to give Raven the same beating Eric Watts got. Does this mean Abyss is going to give Raven the Black Hole Slam? Turns out maybe?
Hmm.
Yeah.
How about that?
Thoughts on this promo?
Why are these people always on screen talking?
I don't know. Scott Hudson has to do a minimum of 12 interviews a week.
He fucking, I
And-
swear, in between every goddamn match, there was a Scott Hudson interview, I think.
No matter how short or how long the match was, Scott Hudson was with us after the next break.
Mm-hmm.
Legitimately, I don't think any person has had the cumulative time on screen that Scott Hudson has had since he's debuted in the company like 3 months ago. Like today
he's
and
on
West
here an
are
awful lot.
Yeah, today and West are talking all the time, but you only see them for like maybe a total of like 3 minutes the entire show.
Yeah,
But
usually when Don is shilling merch.
yes, and at the very beginning when they do the intro, and then when Jeff Jarrett threatens them.
Mm-hmm.
There's your 3 spots for the announcers. Which again makes you wonder why WWE kept trying to fire Jim Ross because he's ugly. You know, it's like oh my God, Jim Ross is so ugly that the 3 minutes he's on camera is going to make people turn off the TV.
Yeah.
So we go to our next match. It is Abyss with Don Callis versus Shark Boy. Now Tenay, come on, Mike Tenay. He says that this was not an X Division match. I would like to point out that only one of the people in this match were at one point an X Division champion. Plus, the X Division is about no limits, not weight limits. So who's to say Abyss is not having an X Division match with Shark Boy?
Isn't Tenay the one who came up with that tagline?
I heard Don West did, but it could have been Tenay.
Maybe, yeah. You maybe.
Yeah.
Like, I remember Tenay telling the story about it, but he may have been. It was one of the two. You're right.
So I get wrestling is fake. I get you can say these things in fake pro wrestling that don't make sense in a real fight. But Tenay's theory was that Don Callis wants Abyss to think that Shark Boy is AJ Styles. If this was a real fight, that is a really bad idea because Abyss would then be preparing for the wrong person. Because you do not prepare for Shark Boy the same way you prepare for AJ Styles. Now I get the theory that, okay, Don wants Abyss to beat the shit out of Shark Boy like he wants him to beat the shit out of AJ Styles, but I think they'd have been better off explaining that more than, he wants him to pretend that it's AJ, especially when it's Abyss, who, like, we know later on that he pretends to be a lawyer for 2 years, but we're supposed to believe that this guy is an out of control monster who has to be led by the hand, sometimes literally, to be told what to do.
You're overthinking this severely.
I am, and sometimes I just have to entertain myself. Now, I say this a lot, and it's especially obvious in these early days. Abyss is far too generous in the ring, especially for wrestlers that he shouldn't be generous for. And I got no problems with Shark Boy. But again, I think he's won 2 matches in his entire run in TNA up to this point. Abyss is being pushed as not a main event guy, but a next level guy. And Shark Boy is the opening match comedy guy. Abyss should not be selling and taking Shark Boy's finish, even if it doesn't lead to the finish. Abyss should not be doing that. And Abyss, like I said, he's a very generous person. He takes people's moves that he really shouldn't be, especially when it's a small X Division guy like Shark Boy. Now, of course, Abyss did win the match. He won clean with a black hole slam. I argue it should have been a 90-second squash match, but oh well. After the match, Shark Boy goozled Don Callis, so Abyss gave him a shock treatment and then powerbombed him through a table. I did give the match a 1.5 out of 10.
Let Shark Boy have a damn comeback. It's not hurting anybody.
I'm just, but you know what I mean. Like, and this is not just now. Like, this is an Abyss issue forever because every so often TNA will be like, okay, we need to push Abyss as this monster, and they'll put him in the ring with somebody, and Abyss is selling for 2 minutes. It's like, don't do that. The Shark Boy can live to get over another day. This wasn't the day for Shark Boy to go over, or to get his moves over. This was the day for Abyss to just beat the piss out of him and win. But anyway,
Abyss,
what's your? Mhm.
Abyss never really learned to work like a big guy, did he?
No, he didn't.
He
I
made
don't
his
know
whole
if it's-
thing. He made his whole thing doing the hardcore shit.
Yeah, it's like Abyss is a big guy for TNA standards because he was like 6'4", 6'5", in a promotion full of 6 feet tall people. But then it was like when they'd bring in your Matt Morgans and Kevin Nashes and Tom Coes, it's like he's not a giant. He's a very large man, but he's not a giant.
Well, there you go.
What's your rating for this one?
2. I liked it.
Okay.
I like Shark Boy's comeback. Spunky Shark.
So Scott Hudson in yet another appearance on the show. I think this is number 4. Scott Hudson is now with Raven, who has a match with both red shirts. And this is where I wrote, I hope Scott Hudson gets paid per appearance on the show. Raven said that last week he took Ryan Wilson and snapped his arm in half, putting him out of wrestling. I don't know whether or not Ryan Wilson returns as a red shirt, but we know that Ryan Wilson does come back because, as we mentioned last week, he is Triton in like a year and a couple months. He is Triton. And
If he was
spoiler
in-
alert, he doesn't get that much better.
If he was in Mexico, would he be Triton?
He probably would have been. I get the
only.
joke.
Thank you.
Yes. I also love when we have Roosh and Leo Rush and there was one other one. I'm blanking. I'm like all together. And it's like we can't just it's the same name. We can't just all pronounce it one way. So this is where I thought, and maybe I just misheard them the whole time. I thought this match was supposed to be a handicap match. So I'm sitting here like, why is Raven so headstrong about having a handicap match with the red shirts when he has 2 people who, whether or not he wants them to be lackeys, they're very happy to be his lackeys and willing to go in and have one of them wrestle with him, and they just won't do it. I wrote, because Punk and Julio walked up and wanted to talk, but Raven didn't want to talk. Ever notice the only time Raven doesn't want to talk is when his minions want to talk to him?
Raven not wanting to hang out with CM Punk just kind of validates my hypothesis that CM Punk is unpleasant to hang out with.
In my fantabulous second book, 40 Years of Pay-Per-View, Book 2, 1991 through 1993, on sale now. At Halloween Havoc 1991, Van Hammer has a match with Doug Summers. And even though it's like 45 seconds, it's the absolute drizzling shits. And I use this to point out that in a few months after that, Hammer would have a Falls Count Anywhere match with Cactus Jack, which was perfectly acceptable, thus proving my time-tested theory, Mick Foley is better than Doug Summers.
I think Doug Summers was better at other points than he probably was in WCW in 1990 or whatever.
1991 wrestling Van
Yeah.
Hammer on pay-per-view.
Yeah,
If
and
it, go ahead.
I don't it Mick, especially at that time, I don't know, he was better at getting stuff out of people.
Definitely. I think, and I have to go back and reread my book because I know somebody got substituted because Michael Hayes was supposed to wrestle, and I'm pretty sure he was supposed to wrestle Van Hammer, and
Oh
he had to get
God.
pulled due to injury. He got replaced by Doug Summers.
Uh when I die and go to hell, that Michael Hayes and Van Hammer match that never happened will be my eternal punishment.
Oh Lord! So we think X versus Chris Sabin. 3 weeks ago, Sabin was the last person eliminated in the Michael Shane Battle Royal, but got injured by X and couldn't wrestle in the tournament, even though he returned before the tournament was over, which is one of those TNA tropes that would go on forever. Sabin claims the X Division title match tonight should have been his, and Tenay said he has a point. Now, I know this is me nitpicking, and I know Trae gets annoyed when I nitpick, but I got to nitpick here. Sabin does not have a point. There's no proof that Sabin would have won either of the tournament matches he would have had to have if he didn't get injured. So it is easily argued that Sabin should be given a chance to get a chance at the title, but that's it. Now, I thought this match was an expose of X as an X Division wrestler. As I mentioned, I've really been enjoying X. Because he's been in a battle royal, he's been in a three-way match. So it's things that you can hide him so he can do wacky, crazy stuff and stand out and be different. This was his first one-on-one match, and I was not a fan of this one here. Um, I thought, you know, PCO is a very good wrestler. He does some crazy stuff, and he does something crazy during this match. But it was, uh, you know, it was him doing a heavyweight style match with the occasional "I'm crazy" PCO move thrown in out of nowhere. Now, because the X Division at this point had basically been this is the ROH style for 8 minutes on a pay per view, and this was and PCO, he's great. Again, he was a nice addition for those first few weeks, but like I didn't care for him here. Um, but then of course he does the craziest fucking move on the show. Now, about a month or so ago, they did an angle with the red shirts and the black shirts where Ryan Wilson heaved Rick Santel out of the ring and halfway up the ramp, and poor Rick Santel separated his shoulder and hasn't been in the ring since. And I don't know if he ever actually comes back to wrestle, but anyway. So here's the thing we know. That ramp is fucking hard. It is fucking hard, and people do get injured landing on the ramp. X took Chris Sabin outside the ring. He puts him down with a backbreaker and then ascends to the top rope and comes flying off with a senton atomico to Sabin. But Sabin rolled out of the way and X crashed and burned on that hard ass wooden ramp. And I don't know if it was better or worse, but he did not bounce. He splatted onto that ramp.
This was very PCO.
Yes. And it's easy to kind of ignore it because again, PCO will end up doing some crazy shit in 15, 20 years. But like this is still an insane thing to be fucking doing at any age.
I
Um,
was at the match between PCO and Walter WrestleMania weekend in New Orleans, and it PCO's chest was the most disgusting shade of puce I have ever seen.
I did not even know those two ever wrestled each other. I may have to go out of my way to go find that one.
Yeah, it was either Mercury Rising or Spring Break 2018.
I was gonna say this was the 2018 New Orleans, not the 2014.
Yeah, it was in 2018, and it was at one of two shows that I went to that evening.
Okay. By the way, almost anticlimactically at this point, they got back in the ring and Sabin won with a cradle shock. Like honestly, X would have been better coming in. I understand his name was X, so it's like it made sense for the X division, but it made more sense for him to come in the heavyweight division as somebody who would occasionally wrestle an X division wrestler than being an actual formal member of the X division. With that said, I gave this match an entire extra point just based on the finish, and gave this a 4.0 out of 10.
2 3/4.
What was that?
2 3/4.
So you did like it more than I did. So Scott Hudson was now in the crowd with Jimmy Hart, and all the fans wanted to be at ringside to strap Jeff Jarrett. He said he was going to pick 5 people, and then he picked 2, and we just went to the back or went on to the next segment.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was whatever. So up next, okay. So the Raven red shirt situation. In the pre-match video, we had an interview from Explosion where Raven told Punk and Julio to leave him alone and to not interfere. And so we go to the ring, and I wrote Raven versus Legend and Kevin Northcutt in a handicap match. Except it wasn't a handicap match. It was 2 separate singles matches in what was essentially a gauntlet match.
They said it was a gauntlet style handicap match.
Okay, but fine. But it's like, but this is where, and again, you're gonna accuse me of nitpicking, but this is where my head was exploding a little bit because the whole point of him wrestling both of them this week was because he knew if he wrestled one this week, then he just have to wrestle the other one the next week. And if he only wrestled one this week, the other one would just interfere ad nauseum. So that's why I'm like, okay, it's a handicap match because he's wrestling both of them at once, so he doesn't have to worry about the other one interfering constantly. But instead, it was a gauntlet match where the other one was interfering constantly.
Just because you don't listen to the announcement doesn't mean that this didn't suck. By the way, I sent you a picture of PCO's chest after the Walter match.
That is a very not human color.
Yeah.
Was this actually? I mean, I know it's the man known as PCO, but was this PCO or was this, Pierre Caroulet?
No, this was PCO. Like, this was his. Like, honestly, that was the first time that I had heard of him, and probably like since he did fucking X. And then after that, shortly after that, was when he showed up in Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm. All right, so as this match got going, Punk and Julio came out to watch from the ramp because the first part of this was Raven versus Legend. Northcutt interfered almost immediately. Raven's entire coming back was hitting Legend with the even flow DDT to get the pin. Raven went for the DDT on Northcutt, but Legend ran in and attacked Raven for not the disqualification. And I wrote, well, I guess all of Raven's matches are no DQ, but what's the point of Legend or Northcutt ever standing outside of the ring and watching? And then if that wasn't dumb enough, the actual finish was Abyss hitting the ring and giving Raven the black hole slam for the ... no contest. And this is where I apparently made up the rule that in TNA, one person can interfere in front of the referee, but as soon as the second person interferes in front of the referee, then it won't be a disqualification. It'll be a no contest. And shockingly, this is not the only time on this show that my made-up rule is used.
You've got to have standards.
Yes. Now, by the way, as I mentioned, Abyss and Don Callis ran out. And as I mentioned about 10 seconds before that, when the match began, Punk and Julio came out and stood on the ramp. which means Abyss and Don Callis had to run right by Punk and Julio to hit the ring to attack Raven. And then Punk and Julio, they hung out for a little bit and then ran in for the save.
Had to think about it.
What was that?
They had to think about it.
This was a nothing match with a shit finish, and Callis had North Cutting legend guide Abyss to the back. 0.5 out of 10.
Half a star.
What was that?
Half a star.
Yeah. So Scott Hudson is with Jimmy Hart yet again. He has his Lumberjacks outfitted in TNA shirts and got them to quote unquote spontaneously start chanting, "Whip him like a dog."
I mean, was that supposed to be spontaneous, or was it him getting them to chant it?
I assumed it was supposed to be spontaneous because, like, I don't know, like, to me, if it wasn't supposed to be spontaneous, then Jimmy Hart should have said that. Like, he should have been the one to start it, saying, "Whip him like a dog, whip him
Was
like
he
a dog,"
not?
and get. Not really. Like, everyone just started chanting it.
Oh, whatever.
Scott Hudson in his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times already on the show, and I don't think this is the end for Scott Hudson. Nope, Scott Hudson still has 2 more appearances on the show. So 8 times we have Scott Hudson on the show. 7 matches, 8 Scott Hudson appearances. I love Scott Hudson, but somewhere like he must be like charging them an arm and a leg, and they're like, "Oh man, he's so good, we have to use him, we have to pay him. So if we're gonna pay him, we're gonna fucking work him like a dog here."
I can't imagine that they were breaking the bank for Scott Hudson in 2003.
Like Goldilocks was the backstage announcer before this, and it's like she was on a lot, but I don't remember her being on after every fucking match like this. I have to go back and look. So it is now time for the X Division Championship match. Michael Shane defending against Sonjay Dutt, and they remind us that they wrestled before in a match that I completely forgot about. They wrestled on October 29th. Shane beat Sonjay in a non-title match, and beating Sonjay is what led to Shane making the tournament for an X Division title match that was won by Sonjay.
Well,
I wrote, what happens when Shane wins here? Do we get another tournament?
I would have to assume so. Maybe Chris Sabin can be in it this time.
Maybe Chris Sabin can at least get to the end of it this time.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of Shane, Shane was shown watching from a perch with Tracy Brooks, but that was Douglas, not Michael. This match is so important that today starts talking about a challenge that Abyss and the Red Shirts have made to Raven and the Gathering for next week. Douglas and Tracy came to the ring and began chanting for Sonjay, and I'm like, there was not a single person in this crowd that thought that Shane Douglas and Tracy Brooks were coming for Sonjay Dutt. And as we've mentioned before, Sonjay's been here for like a month. He is the most inept, gullible, naive babyface in the promotion. And think about the ground that covers. And the thing is, Sonjay was even believing, oh my God, they're out here for me. They want me to win. Which I could even let that go, except we had a segment a few weeks ago where Shane Douglas was in the locker room talking to the X Division guy off the camera, telling him how great he was and how great he would be in the new franchise. Wouldn't Sonjay have known that he was not the person Shane Douglas was talking to?
These baby faces, they're not smart.
Especially Sonjay. Sonjay, like, I know you've just been watching the last few weeks, but Sonjay's been setting records for stupidity as a babyface.
Oh, really?
Yes. So Sonjay got a near fall with a modified Destino, and then hit the Hindu press, but Tracy jerked him off. Michael Shane. And then Tracy decided to just hold referee Mike Posey's face in her breasts while Michael Shane pulled out a chain and KO'd Sonjay with it for the pin. I gotta say, outside of watching Marina Shafir do that to people in AEW on what seems like a weekly basis at this point, that's not the worst position for a referee's face to be.
So I didn't even think of that being a modified Destino. This was the move that Ultimo Dragon would debut in WWE a few months later, or maybe already had.
So,
was Ultimo Dragon already in WWE at this point?
He was.
Yeah,
I actually forgot about that.
Yeah, this is the move that, to the best of my knowledge, is pretty much universally known as the Acai DDT.
Yeah, I saw it and I started screaming Destino. But
so I said earlier that I was going to mention a quality early TNA theme. Michael Shane's theme is a banger.
It is, and I'm happy to say Sonjay Dutt's first theme. That would have I'd have been like, what the hell is wrong with you?
No.
After the match, Shane Douglas took the mic and confirmed that Michael Shane was the newest member of the new franchise. And I thought it was interesting in it, and I don't know if they bring it up. We'll see in the next few weeks, that Shane Douglas is aligning himself with the cousin of Shawn Michaels.
I bet they never mentioned that.
I mean, they do mention quite frequently that Michael Shane is the cousin of Shawn Michaels.
Yes, Tenay mentioned it during this match, but this is like my wish that they had mentioned that Ted DiBiase's money came from oil.
Okay. I don't know why, but when you said this is my wish that they'd explain that Ted DiBiase's money came from, I don't know why, but I thought you were talking about Ted DiBiase Jr. Because remember when he was rich for 5 minutes?
And shouldn't he have come from old money?
That's basically what I was waiting for you to say, that he got his money from Ted DiBiase.
No, he got his money from the people of Mississippi.
Burn. By the way, 5.0 out of 10. This was certainly a very decent match.
Yeah, 3 3/4. It was like they worked really hard for a match that was like the second or third most important thing going on in the segment.
Yeah. Scott Hudson was now with Dusty Rhodes. They said Dusty Rhodes and AJ Styles, and I guess AJ did come in at the end, but it was a 95% Dusty Rhodes promo. And I'm like, only one of these people will be wrestling on tonight's pay-per-view. Dusty said he spent weeks trying to make Jeff Jarrett the mothership. I thought WCW Saturday Night was the mothership. So was he trying to turn Jeff Jarrett into the 605 show?
Well, the mothership is vacant now, so something else can become the mothership.
Oh, there we go. It's not until Brian Last steals it for the 605 podcast that the mothership officially gets filled again. Dusty's putting over the fans. The fans made him a star. The fans put food on his table. The fans put his kids in school. And I'm like, well, he was never home for Dustin, so the fans may have put his kids in school. So tonight, the fans, the people, will bring a little bit of respect to Jeff Jarrett. And then AJ wandered in and said that next week it won't be that AJ can't compete with Jeff Jarrett. People will be saying that Jeff Jarrett can't compete with him.
Are you sitting down? Because I'm going to drop a hot take.
Okay, I'm sitting. I'm clutching the arms of my chair here. I don't want to fall off.
Dusty Rhodes cuts better promos than 2003 AJ Styles.
Say what? You just made my head explode, kiddo. I will say the one thing, and Jimmy Hart was apparently behind this. AJ is dressing better. Like he's wearing nicer clothes. Like he's not wearing a t-shirt and holy jeans anymore while cutting promos about being the top guy in the company. He went out and he bought a nice shirt. He looks he doesn't look like a star, but he's closer to looking like a star now than he was a few months ago. And apparently Jimmy Hart, this was a big deal for him that the wrestlers should dress more like stars.
Do you remember when AJ did Ric Flair cosplay for like 6 months?
Yes, I do. And he was always wearing his wedding ring while talking about womanizing and all that.
Yeah.
At least Rick Rude would put tape over his wedding ring so you couldn't see it. AJ was just wearing his around his neck the whole time. Lord. Oh my God. So at still no spoilers because this you won't hear this on TV, but during the Samoa Joe match at Full Gear, one guy a couple rows behind me screamed, "Wendy!" like Joe did that time at SummerSlam, and it made like 10 of us laugh. So shout out to you if you're listening. Trey's just ignoring us at this point.
I wanted to see how long it'd go.
I'm purposely avoiding talking about what happened at Full Gear because I don't want. I know we've talked about this before. I know we've said that it's your choice to, be behind and not catch up right now. And so if you get spoiled, then you get spoiled. But it's my choice to not do it to you on purpose.
It's not worth the
Um,
effort.
to me, it is. Because if you're listening to this, you know what happened. So what? So I'm not going to sit here and spoil it for the one person who may not know and let him just enjoy it like the rest of us may or may not have. So we go to the ring for our next match. It is the 6-man tag match for the vacant 2-man tag team titles. Simon Diamond, Johnny Swinger, and main event Glen Gilbertti versus the 3 Live Crew. During the pre-match video package, we saw footage from Explosion where Simon, Swinger, Gilbertti, and Young were arguing with each other. Now, before the match began, I wrote America's Most Wanted came out to do commentary, but since they only had one extra headset, only Chris Harris joined commentary. And I was thinking, like, in Smoky Mountain, they only had 2 headsets. And so, like, Dutch would usually not talk during the match because he's giving his headset up to whoever the guest is. It's like, was Don West really needed for this match? Like, he could have given his headset to James Storm, although, like, it would have required one of them to sit on Don West's side because Harris and Storm were next to Tenay. But still, but whatever.
Storm, Harris was talking. Storm was watching for fuckery, so he had other things on his mind.
At one point, like there was like a 5-second period of silence, and I'm like, I bet Storm's talking right now and hasn't picked up on the fact that his voice isn't being picked up on the microphone.
Did you notice that Borash called Swinger Scotty Swinger?
I did not notice that. I'll have to go back and.
I said this last week, but since it came up again, Jeremy Borash, a fucking terrible ring announcer. He is good at many things and has done a lot of very good work, but ring announcing was not.
I think he was better than Christy Hemme. Christy Hemme was a lot prettier than Jeremy Borash.
How low is the fucking bar?
But you'll also notice that Johnny Swinger didn't get in the ring and shove his crotch in Jeremy Borash's face when he got the name wrong. Although I guess Borash didn't say that they were the 3 Live Crew.
Chris Harris noted that he respects everyone in the match except for Gilbertti, and I'm like, dude, same.
I respect Glen Gilbertti to an extent. I don't respect him to getting a world title match on pay-per-view, but I respect that Glen Gilbertti was an entertaining part of WCW at times, and I respect that when Glen Gilbertti wants to, he's a decent wrestler. And so, like, when he came in at the beginning of this year, I'm like, okay, like, he'll at least have some decent matches, but yeah.
The only time that I ever enjoyed Disco was when he was the stooge in the Filthy Animals.
There was a match, and I think it was Bash at the Beach in '96. He had with Malenko for the cruiserweight title, and I'm not saying it was a 4.5 star match, but that was a very very enjoyable pro wrestling match featuring the Disco Inferno.
There was one pay-per-view where he wrestled twice, and one of them was a cruiserweight title match.
Yep,
And
it was
at least one of those
Kidman and
matches,
Hoovy.
yeah, at least one of those matches was quite good.
Yeah, because that was when, and again, WCW being WCW, Kidman was a cruiserweight champion. He beat Hoovy for the belt, and instead of just doing a rematch between those two on the pay-per-view, they're like, oh no, we're gonna have Disco Inferno lose weight. That was the gimmick because he had to lose like 10 pounds or something. He has to lose weight to be a cruiserweight, and he's gonna wrestle Hoovy, and the winner of that match will wrestle Kidman later on in the show. And then Kidman just won, over Disco. Um, and like the Kidman push, it was 3/4 ass because like a few months later at Starrcade was when he had that fucking amazing 3-way with Rey Mysterio Jr. and Hoovy, and then once he won that, Eddie Guerrero came out and challenged him to an immediate match, and Kidman beat him in another great match. And then you can stop watching Starrcade after the second match, unless you have a perverse desire to see some goddamn atrocious mid-card matches.
Trying to remember.
Oh Lord!
It's not a.
Basically, if you want to watch that show, watch the first two matches and watch Kevin Nash beat Goldberg.
I had that VHS tape growing up, so I've seen that show far too many times.
Wasn't it like, I know they did like a wacky tag match with Bryan Adams and like
I think it was
Fit
Bryan
Finlay.
Adams and Scott Norton against Fit Finlay and Jerry Flynn.
Yes. Norman Smiley took on Prince Iakea. These are real matches on Starrcade '98.
Harry Saturn versus the Cat.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. At least there was a storyline because they had a storyline going. Not a great storyline, but they had a storyline with Harry Saturn and the Cat. There was no storyline for Prince Iakea versus Norman Smiley.
No.
So back to 2003. This match once again proved that R-Truth should have been getting a actual main event push at this point. Not saying that 3LK wasn't entertaining and weren't a good group, but R-Truth by and far, miles ahead at this point of BG and Conan in the ring. Truth and Swinger worked really well together, and I'd love to see them have a singles match. I don't think they ever do. During the match, we had Raven arguing with the Gathering backstage, and Punk was randomly talking about Shark Boy. Meanwhile, future podcast co-hosts Conan and Gilbertti went at one another. Tanay asked Harris who would he rather wrestle, and he had to ask Harris like 3 times and basically pry it out of him to basically get Harris, to give an answer, which was hilarious. They got the heat on BG. He teased the hot tag by punching Simon in the groin, but he just stopped trying to roll to the corner. Gilbertti was arguing with Simon throughout the match, and a heel miscommunication spot led to Truth getting the hot tag. We broke down into a 6-way brawl, which settled down to Truth and Swinger. Truth gives Swinger an axe kick, but because the referee was busy dealing with BG and Simon on the outside, he didn't see David Young run in with the tennis racket to thwack Truth with it. James Storm dove into the ring to stop the referee from counting. Chris Harris speared David Young off camera, and Truth pinned Swinger after a front suplex to win the match and the belts. I will say this, because I didn't know this was where they won it, but I knew 3 Live Crew was winning the belts, and I figured if this was the point they won, they were going to beat Gilbertti as a cop-out finish. But I was pleasantly surprised that they not just beat the champions, they beat somebody who's in the actual team. I thought this was a successful segment because they did a good job of not just setting up AMW for a future title match, but they also gave us a reason if they want to split off AMW to do a non-title feud with Simon and Swinger. We have a reason to go for that. The problem is TNA has a very shallow tag team division right now, especially. And the options for a second heel team in the company to feud with 3LK right now are quite limited and potentially red. I mean, green. But for one segment, I may not give it the highest rating of all time, but for one segment, I thought this was good. I gave it a 3.5 out of 10.
Is that good by our standards such that this was good?
I like that they nicely set up, a couple different things here. Because I mean, they're probably just going to do a three-way, but I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt and think about things a little bit more. Because AEW, I don't think they get the belts back until they go to Impact, because Chris Harris is about to get a singles push towards the world title. So I'm just thinking of that. I'm like, well, where are they going with AMW from here? Or where do they go with the tag titles from here? Because I don't think it goes to AMW. And so they're splitting them off. At least in my mind, it feels like they're splitting them off to do a non-title feud with Simon and Swinger, because AMW never got a definitive final win over them.
The tag titles are a fucking mess for the first half of 2004 until they start Impact and America's Most Wanted win them back.
I know Kid Cash and Lance Hoyt win them at one point, and then they do like a bunch of disqualification title changes. And then Kid Cash and Lance Hoyt have them and lose to AMW either on the last pay-per-view before Impact or on the first Impact.
It was on the first Impact.
Okay. Because I know they did they changed all three titles like they do every time TNA goes on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time they had to get the world title on Jarrett, the tag titles on AMW, and the X title on AJ.
Because it became a joke, later on, but I could see the point of this, like outside of Jarrett being the world champion. But like AMW was their best tag team. AJ Styles was the best representative of the X division. So I could understand that. But it did become a joke later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, what did you give this match? I by the sounds of it, you did not like the whole thing as much as I did.
2 stars. This was kind of a fucking mess.
I think production is also a big deal with it because, like I mentioned, Chris Harris speared the shit out of David Young, we were told, off camera. Off camera. And not only was it off camera, they didn't even have it to show a replay of it later on.
BG should be the guy who stands on the apron, gets the hot tag, makes a 30-second comeback, and then tags back out so his suddenly rested partner can finish the match.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about this a few weeks ago, because at first they were doing Get the Heat on Truth for BG to get the hot tag. And it's like, BG shouldn't be doing the hot tag here. But then you see him selling, and it's like, BG shouldn't be selling either. But like Conan would be worse, I think.
BG should tag in and do the fucking punches and tag back out.
Go for the gay sex power slam and call it a day.
Yep.
Thankfully, he stopped doing the simulated anal sex because he had I forget it may have been the tag match they did with BG and Hermes Sadler against Jeff Jarrett and Bruce. But like BG had been doing the simulated anal rape pump handle power slam, and he got creeped out because Bruce enjoyed it. So it's like it was okay for the babyface to simulate anal rape, but not if the other person enjoyed it.
Oh, that sounds fucking fantastic.
It sounds better than it was. Now from here we got another Roddy Piper promo. This one taped from might have been his living room, might have been his basement. He had a punching dummy there that he was beating up, and this was the most coherent Roddy Piper promo we've ever had on this show.
Oh
even though
God,
that's really not saying a whole lot.
I understood very little of this.
I hey, they only do one edit, and on these Roddy Piper promos, they normally have to do like 15 or 16 edits. So one edit is a big improvement.
Oh,
And the one thing
okay.
though I was kind of surprised by, and I know Pride was a thing, and UFC was obviously a thing, but Piper wasn't wearing boxing gloves. He was wearing MMA gloves. And this is before The Ultimate Fighter. This is when UFC was still being purchased by 20,000 people. No matter how good or bad it was, nobody cared about the UFC at this point, and Piper's there wearing MMA gloves.
Well, you remember Piper said that he would quit professional boxing if he didn't knock out Mr. T at WrestleMania 2. So he couldn't wear boxing gloves.
That's true. I don't think he's ever had a boxing match ever again. So a promise in pro wrestling that was lived up to, unless you
Although
count that segment from Nitro where he was finding his team for Uncensored, and the one guy came in with boxing gloves. Although that was not an official match, so maybe that was more of a sparring session.
although he did not quit professional wrestling, and we don't know whether or not he quit dating girls.
Well, to be fair, he was married to the same woman he was married to when he died. So, you know,
That
he's
doesn't
no
mean
longer he was
anything.
well, he wasn't dating her anymore. He was already married to her.
That doesn't mean he wasn't dating.
Okay. Um, so we go to the ringside area where Don West is plugging the Babes of TNA calendar. And at least this was slightly better than a couple of years later when the only woman they had on the roster was Tracy. So I'm like, the Babes of TNA calendar, they have Tracy, Trinity, and the Cage Dancers. And this is before the term knockout became a thing. But yeah, in like 2 years, Tracy's the only woman in the company. And I forget if it was a DVD or a calendar or something, but they were like, oh, we're selling this thing of the TNA knockouts. And it's like, so Tracy, there's one woman on this entire roster, and it's Tracy. Just say you're putting out a poster of Tracy or whatever. Um, and
I
what was that?
that nothing. Go on.
Okay. They also announced that they have launched TNA On Demand, where if you're a
Mm-hmm.
masochist, you could buy any TNA pay-per-view from the beginning on the internet. I wrote just in case you hate yourself. Now, the funny thing is that was my official introduction to TNA. Because while I had been following it like enough to read the results every week and whatnot, um, that was the first time I watched a TNA match because they would have a couple up for free. And I remember that's when I fell in love with an AJ Styles D'Lo Brown match that my 19-year-old ass severely overrated because we saw every AJ D'Lo Brown match, and there was no one match of that series that made me mark the fuck out the way it did when I was 19.
I was downloading matches off of fucking LimeWire before that.
Well, you were giving your computer aids. I didn't
I
have an
sure
actual
was.
computer. I didn't have a computer because I was in college at the time. I was using one of the library computers. And so I'm sure there were at least a couple of people walking behind me going, what is that goofball watching?
I
And
had unrestricted access to the internet from a very young age.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I was the only person in my family who understood technology.
Hmm, okay. Okay. So next week, it's Jeff Jarrett versus AJ Styles for the NWA title. We went backstage where Raven was talking to Scott Hudson and The Gathering. Raven said that next week, for one night and one night only, they will be together and take on Abyss and the Red Shirts. And he basically then wants to have a match with whomever wins the title match next week.
They're going to turn on him next week.
I don't think yet, because I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure Jarrett does a title match with Raven before the end of the year. Uh, and so next week's the fourth, so it's him and AJ. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure December 18th is him and Sting. So that would leave, if they do a Jarrett Raven match where Punk finally turns on him, that would be the 11th. Because they do best of shows on the Christmas and New Year's Day, which, spoiler alert, Cyndi and I will not be sitting around to talk about.
December 4th, by the way, my dad's birthday.
Happy birthday. How old is he?
He will be 73 this year.
Nice. Happy birthday to Trae's dad. I don't know why, but until yesterday, I thought your dad had passed away.
My mom has passed away.
Oh,
my dad's still alive.
I'm so sorry. So we got our main event, which is the NWA World Champion Jeff Jarrett versus Dusty Rhodes in a non-title Fans Revenge Lumberjack with Straps match. As I mentioned last week, it was No Surrender 2006 when they did this same match with Jarrett and Samoa Joe. And in that match, Jarrett came out wearing like every t-shirt TNA had at the time, which was funny. And to be honest, I wish he would have done that here.
Not only did he not do that here, he came out in a shirt and then fucking took it off.
I'll be honest, I was like, here's that mesh shirt that he wore all the time. I don't think it would have maybe helped him out a little bit, but I don't think that thing would have really helped. He needed a thick hoodie to wear to the ring for this one here.
By the way, on the note of
Mm-hmm.
TNA themes that were actually good, Dusty's TNA theme slaps.
Really?
It suits Dusty. It's perfect. I mean,
Okay.
it's not Common Man Boogie, but for generic
I'll
instrumental music,
I'll give you that. That ring music is definitely a Dusty Rhodes theme song.
absolutely.
Nobody else could have that banjo music playing.
That's true.
Although it was like, I forget. Now, this wasn't a show you were on, but a few months ago, either Don Callis was calling out Vince Russo or Vince Russo was calling out Don Callis, and the banjo music played, and I'm like, this is definitely not Vince Russo or Don Callis' music.
No.
So after the bell rang, Jarrett threatened to beat up the fans, and in the minute that passed before that and when they locked up, Tenay sent best wishes to former NWA World Champion Dick Hutton, who passed away this week. He's like, honestly, like he's forgotten because he held the belt for like 3 years, I think. I believe he beat Pat O'Connor and lost it to Lou Thez, if I'm remembering my NWA title lineage correctly. I could have.
I was trying to remember.
backwards.
That sounds right. I'll let me look here. It's like have it right here. Orville Brown, Lou Thez, Billy Watts. You did have that backwards. Hutton beat Lou Thez in 1957, October 1957, and lost it in January 1959 to Pat O'Connor.
Okay, great. And then Pat O'Connor went and had a tag team title tournament named after him in WCW. If Dick Hutton had won that match, the Steiners could have won the Dick Hutton International Tag Team Tournament at Starrcade.
I think that would have been better.
So Jarrett took a bionic elbow and rolled outside of the ring and got strapped back into it. The thing is, Dusty can't go at all at this point. So this match was pretty much Jeff Jarrett gets whipped and looks angry about it. They did do the spot because I was actually questioning what would happen when Dusty went outside. So they did do the spot where Jarrett knocked Dusty down and rolled him to the apron. And the Lumberjacks, of course, did not lay one finger on the American Dream. Dusty got Jimmy's belt because Jimmy was there and he had a strap and he used it. Now, shouldn't that have been a disqualification? Like, I get the Lumberjacks have the straps and allowed to use them, but Dusty's not allowed to use straps. You know? Like, why is Dusty allowed to use the belt? So, Jarrett kicked Dusty low, and Dusty fell into the referee, which put the referee into a coma.
No. You are giving that more credit than it deserves. Jarrett kicked Dusty in the balls, which somehow caused Dusty to elbow the referee in the face.
Well, That actually makes more sense to the referee now going into a coma. Because when I just thought he fell into the referee and the referee was laid out for what felt like 3 hours, like that's
I
a little overreacting here. This
uh,
is Mike Chioda at WrestleMania 17 with Hunter and Triple H levels of
I
selling.
I have had the misfortune to be struck violently in the testicles before, and never once did it cause me to throw my elbow up at a 45-degree angle.
I don't know. Maybe he was trying to show Legend how to sell a low blow. I don't know. Um, so by the way, Dusty, as we mentioned, had a strap. And when he got low blowed, he dropped the strap in the ring. Now, did Jeff Jarrett lean over and pick up the strap in order to start strapping Dusty with it? No. He took the belt off of the referee and began using it on Dusty. Jeff, you got to work smarter, not harder, my friend. Um, And at this point, we had the whole bunch of run-ins. Don Callis ran in, Eric Watts ran in, the red shirts. The red shirts then attacked Watts for the disqualification, at which Tenay then called a no contest, which does continue the rule established earlier that two people running in equals a no contest.
Well, at least it's applied consistently. That's all I ask for. If you're gonna have these stupid fucking rules, at least apply them consistent.
Now we'll see if this happens next week, because I guarantee there will be a time where two people run in front of the referee, and we do not get a no contest.
How's Cindy's shoulder doing?
I'm a very good friend, so I will not say that I haven't talked to her in a week, but she did start rehab this past week, and I am led to believe it's going pretty decently.
Okay, hopefully that means I won't have to be here next week.
I will ask her in about 10 minutes. Um, now, I imagine you had the same file I did because at this point, technical difficulties broke out in the asylum, and we got the NWA TNA will be right back screen, and then AJ Styles when it came back, AJ Styles was in for the save and punching Jeff Jarrett in the face as the show faded to black.
My version did not have that.
Okay, well, what happened? Because AJ ran out, and suddenly we had technical difficulties.
Here's what I wrote. Schmaz, Jimmy Hart, Don Callis, Eric Watts, Red Shirts, AJ Styles. AJ was about to do a house show dive, stopped cold for some reason, and then did a nose touch tope to suicida on Jarrett instead.
Okay, awesome. All right, now I think I'm just being generous with this. And like they did have a lot of stuff to distract from the fact that Dusty Rhodes can't have a match. I gave this a 2.0 out of 10.
I was also generous with this. I gave it a dud.
Yeah, that's right, because Trae can go into negative stars. I refuse to go lower than 0 or higher than 10. Um, so that brings us to the end of the show. Overall match quality 3.36. Because it's TNA. We can only have one really good match a show. Overall enjoyment though, I gave it a 5.0. Maybe it helps that it took me 12 hours to watch the show because I basically watched a little bit at a time while in between work at work. But I didn't have an issue with this show, and you could argue that this show was even downright enjoyable at times. Future build, I I hate the whole Jarrett thing, but we'll say this. They are doing a good job building up challengers for Jeff Jarrett. 6.5 out of 10. They're building up AJ a lot better now than they did when he was about to lose the damn belt. They are building up Raven for a match. Like I said earlier, I like the three-way feud for the tag titles. And Jarrett is much like Triple H on the other channel. He is building up the people that he's going to beat. Um, and
I
that gives us. Mhm.
This was so 2003, so fucking Reign of Terror coded.
Yep. it is very possible that if I was going full 2003 and watching Raw and watching SmackDown, first of all, you'd really question whether or not I have a life, but I may hate this even more because I'd really be comparing this to the Triple H Reign of Terror. But this, anyway, gives us an overall rating today of a 4.95, which, again, does not sound like much when you only do 3 shows a year, but 4.95 is actually a higher than usual rating, even though, in theory, average would be 5.
I mean, no, that's not that's like the fucking median.
So,
Do we need
would
to
you
discuss
generally...
median and mean? I am not a mathematician. Don't make me math.
So, generally speaking, did you agree with my assessment that it was a better than average show, or at least it felt, because again, you've only done 3 of these, that it felt like a better than average show?
I fucking hope not. I hope you're fucking with me that this.
This was better than average. This was certainly no Super X Cup. Like, that was off the charts. But this certainly was no, you know, crap heap of show that we get usually once a month or so. So,
Uh, you
Cindy's
chose
exact
this for
response
yourself.
Cindy's exact response, shoulders getting better. If you need me to do the next show, I'm in. So, do I need Cindy to do the next show, Trae? Are you tapping out at 2?
Fuck.
Yeah, so
Whatever. Whatever.
Cindy's gonna be back next week, unless something happens
I'll
and I need to call in our replacement here.
I'll do it
Um,
if I'm needed.
it's all good because next week we'll be back to the regular schedule, uh, and so we'll be back next week for Mid South World Class Tuesday and Smoky Mountain on Thursday. So just want to say happy Thanksgiving to all of us Americans, you know, and you know. Safe travels if you're going anywhere. If not, eat a whole bunch of turkey and settle down and take a good afternoon nap before going and visiting Santa Claus at night.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying home and eating turkey.
Nice. Uh, I bought my turkey legs over the weekend. Um, I kind of laughed because I bought them on Sunday, and I'm like, well, I'm putting them in the freezer just to take them right back out of the freezer come Wednesday morning. Because I mean, you don't have
Yeah.
to. They're 2 turkey legs, it's like 2 pounds of turkey. I don't need to be defrosted for days.
We did I mentioned it on yesterday's show that they had a deal that if you buy a ham, you get a free 12-pound turkey. So that's what we did. So we did that today, and then we cooked the ham today, and so we're gonna eat the ham today and tomorrow, and then cook the turkey on Thursday.
Nice. Now, I don't know if you bothered to look, but cost wise, how was buying the ham and getting a free turkey versus just buying a turkey?
The ham was like $30, and then the turkey was like $21. So we got
Okay,
a $21 turkey for free, and we also got a ham for the price of a ham. So I call that a good deal.
that's good. And ham is good shit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big ham eater.
Me
Um,
too.
by the way, to follow up on something we said earlier, at Halloween Havoc 91, Doug Summers was in fact the replacement for Michael Hayes in that match with Van Hammer.
What we could have had instead.
Yep. The this was one of those like match. This was one of the shows that was like booked by 2 different people. Because like let me just run down the match. You had the Chamber of Horrors. After that, you had PN News and Big Josh versus the Mysterious Creatures, which was Joey Maggs and Johnny Rich, by the way. We then had Bobby Eaton versus Terrence Taylor. Then we had Jimmy Garvin versus Johnny B. Bad, which was the second best match on the show up to this point. Steve Austin versus Dustin Rhodes for the TV title. Then, after Steve Austin versus Dustin Rhodes, But before Van Hammer versus Doug Summers, this was a match that they asked you to pay for, keep in mind. Oz versus Bill Kazmaier.
Oh God. Oh. I bet that was bowl and shoe ugly.
The funny thing about that was that they had done a lot of switches, especially when it came to the Chamber of Horrors. Because like originally Barry Windham, who was a babyface, was going to be on the heel team, and Oz was supposed to be in the Chamber of Horrors, and they did a trade because Bill Kazmaier was originally supposed to wrestle Cactus Jack, and so they put Cactus into the Chamber of Horrors and Oz into this match. I'm not entirely sure who got the better of that trade.
Huh.
And Kevin Nash, who has been in the business for 1 year, was the veteran in this match.
Jeez.
Yeah. By the way, that was followed by the Van Hammer match. Then Brian Pillman versus Richard Morton for the light heavyweight title. The WCW Phantom versus the Z-Man. And yeah, that was a big mystery as to who the Phantom was. A guy who's about 6'3", 6'4", 240 pounds, using the Rude Awakening as a finish. Who could possibly be the WCW Phantom? The Enforcers versus the Patriots for the World Tag Team titles. And then the main event, Lex Luger versus Ron Simmons in a 2 out of 3 falls match.
Wow. How was that?
That was actually a good match. Now here's a question. You know, when Luger turned heel as the world champion, he was using a pile driver as a finish. Do you remember the name of the pile driver?
Who's pile driver?
Luger's.
No, I don't.
The Attitude Adjustment.
Oh, wow.
Yep. All right. So that's gonna do it. For TNA this week, and that's gonna do it for us this week. So thank you again, Trae, for joining us. Anything you want to say to the fan before we get going?
See you next week on the other show.
Well, thank you all for listening. Take care, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.